I am actually very, very pleased with it. So it's very well thought out. And it works. It actually really works very well. So I am going to say most likely it's going to sit at about a So, Nights Within. Honestly, I gotta say, my expectations for the game were not very high, and they were blown out of the water. I will say that. I am actually very pleased with this game. When I first saw it from the photos and even how some of the stuff looked in the videos, I wasn't too sure. Like, I played a lot of free-to-play or small indie games through the years. We talked about several other ones that I played. This one was a very pleasant surprise. I am very happy with this. I plan to continue to play this game. I don't do this very often with too many games. Like, I'll review a game, I'll play it, either an indie game or even AAA games. This game is grabbing my attention. I am actually very, very pleased with it. Really looking forward to playing this game more, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the developer has planned. Kind of getting into my checklist here. First off is developer info/history. So this game is developed and published by, if I'm saying this correctly, Indecision Labs. It's a solo developer, one dude. His headquarters is in San Diego, California, and he is doing stuff very well. I dare say he is going about it a very good way. The current state and everything is early access. It dropped only like a week ago from the time of this stream, May 15th of this year. The demo, from what I've been able to find, has been out for quite some time, actually, which only allowed you to play the first beginning part of the game. You couldn't really get too far, but there is still a demo for the game. So I gotta say, on the store aspect and what the developer is doing, the state of the game, I'm very pleased with that. It has a demo so people can test it. That is huge. I love it when developers do this with their games. It's kind of an older concept, but I love it for the fact that people have a chance to try your game before they actually decide to buy it. Yes, there can kind of be two aspects to that. Some people might argue it's like, well, just buy the game and then you can return it if you don't like it, kind of thing. That is kind of a concept now with Steam games and such, where you can just buy it, and if you don't like it, as long as it's within the time window, you can return it. But with a demo, it just kind of takes that thing out, where you have enough time to test the game, at least test enough to understand if you want to play the game more, and if you do, then you spend the money and buy the game. On that same thing about price is it's very well priced for an indie game. I dare say I would gladly spend the full price of $18 on this. Like, there is enough here to keep me intrigued for a while. It's currently on sale until the end of the month, which is 10% off. So if you haven't picked it up, I would definitely recommend you do. But honestly, for an early access game, as far as I could tell, it has fewer bugs than most AAA games that come out. I had like one slight visual glitch. And that was when I was swapping between my gun and my sword. My character kept his hand on the sword. I don't know if anyone else noticed that, but at one point it stayed there. But I was still able to shoot and do stuff. So it was just a slight visual thing, but it didn't actually impede gaming. And it was fixed just by switching again. So that was literally the only visual glitch that I actually experienced. And there was no major bug. The game never crashed. The way connecting to teammates and everything worked like a charm. So the actual state that the game is for an early access game, and for being out for only a week, and him already releasing, at this time, 4 different patches that also included new game mechanics. This dude's doing some work. I mean, dang, Nab, I am actually impressed with this aspect. It's getting me some hope, obviously. I do have high hopes for this game. It's honestly got really good potential because of the number of different customization things you could potentially do. Because we'll get into more of that when we get to the gameplay, but there's just a lot of potential of things that he could include into the game where there's already a system for it, or almost a system, where he just has to maybe add in a few things or tweak it, and it could add in a lot more content, at least for the game, and extra stuff. Yeah. When it comes to the potential of the game, it's really good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be keeping this game installed and visiting it often to keep up with it. It is on the top of my to keep an eye on list. So on to graphics. Now, the game is designed in Unreal Engine 5. Now, is it the most stunning? I will say probably not. But again, it's early access and it's a solo developer. So obviously we're not going to be, comparing. It's like, oh, it's in Unreal Engine 5. It should be looking like the newest Assassin's Creed game or newest this or that or whatever. Look absolutely photorealistic. It's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't need to look like that. Can the graphics improve? Sure, it could be a little bit better in the long run, but honestly, it kind of gives off a little bit of a almost grimy look, and I actually like that for this game. It kind of gives off a little bit of like eerie, grimy kind of thing, like you're a knight and stuff like that. If that's what the developer is aiming for, Labs, if that's what he was aiming for, then props to him. He achieved it. It feels really good. Along the same lines with the graphics and animations and stuff like that, he did several things good. Like the enemy movements are good. They're not overly done, so it's not weighing down. Like we had a lot of enemies there in a couple of those fights. There was a lot of enemies running around, and my game wasn't really lagging. Like with a lot of stuff happening on the screen, it didn't really lag for me at all. So, and I don't have a top of the line system. It is a little bit better than the recommendation, but it's still not like top tier. So I was running the game on max settings and everything, and it was doing fine. For the state that it is in and it being early access, a solo dev, the graphics are good. Like I've seen way worse, and in that parameter, thinking of a solo dev and it's an indie game in early access, it looks better than a majority of other games that I've seen with those similar criterias. So it looks really good for what it is, and I think it fits very well for what it is. The character designs, the enemies, the knights and everything like that are very good. When you have all the stuff on your character, like the robes and all the pieces of armor and stuff like that, pieces move around a little bit. It's not overly done. You don't need to see every single plate move, but it's just enough to the point where it looks good, it looks pleasing. You're not going, what the heck is going on there? With that, another thing I will say, the animations for the dodging, the dashing, and the character movement and the sprinting and everything, great. Maybe not amazing, but really good. I gotta say, that's on par to like how smooth the animation movement is for Division games. I absolutely love the Division games for how well your character moves around. Because like if you're running and you stop, your character takes like a couple frames really quick to go. He slows down to a stopping speed. It's not like your character is in a movement and everything, then immediately just stops to the idleness or anything. There's that slight, you guys have seen that, like that slight little buffer when you're going from a moving animation to an idle. There's like a little bit of a buffer where your character does an animation process to that idle. And the same thing when moving from one direction to the other. Way too many times, especially if you're going to do this in a third person aspect, I normally am kind of picky about this, if I'm actually being honest. When a third person shooter game, now MMOs, a little bit different, but a shooter where everything is behind your character and whatnot, when it really comes to that, I really like it when the character movements look good. It helps kind of feel in the immersion a little bit more. It doesn't have to be realistic per se, but a little bit more on the smoother side. So like, oh, well, you're walking to the right, but then all of a sudden you start strafing to the left. Your character takes like a second to turn and go the other direction. It's not just an instant snaps on. There is a little bit of like your character is walking in place, your like the feet and everything. It might not match with how quickly you're trying to move sometimes when you're trying to turn, but for a game like this, that doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. So it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect in that sense. Excuse me. So the animations of your character moving everything is very well done. The dodging feels good. Like if I'm being honest, compared to Banishers, which is it's still an indie game if I remember right, but Banishers is a slightly bigger team with a little bit of experience under their belt, but their dodging and their movement isn't as smooth as this, if I'm actually being completely honest. And that game's a bit bigger. It's a bit more expensive and it was a bit more hyped up and everything. Their character movements, not as smooth as this. The graphics are very, very good and I'm very happy with them. So there could be some slight tweaking here and there to improve it, but it's already at a very good standard. It's starting off high, I'll say. On to our 4th out of 8 points, gameplay. Now, this is like the actual game mechanics and stuff like that. This is going to be a little bit more in depth for these kind of games. Like sometimes a story game, it's just like, oh, you can move and shoot and that's it. This one has a little bit more, so it's going to be a little bit of a longer section. This reminds me heavily of the Remnant series mixed with Risk of Rain. Especially Risk of Rain 2, I will say. And that's very much on the aspect of how the roguelike element works. Now, when it comes to the gunplay and the sword play, it's very similar to how Remnant works, where you have like the different weapons. Now, maybe in the gunplay aspect, you don't have as many guns as like other shooters, but you don't really need that. he made up for that having different modifications you can make to the gun. And one thing I would say, which would be kind of cool for the gameplay, mixed with a little bit of the graphical side, is when you make alterations to your weapons, like your spear, your sword, your armor, and especially your gun and your sword mainly, when you make adjustments to that, because you can adjust it to have like different firing rates. And maybe this is already in the game. I did not get to that part, so I will go ahead and say that. I haven't gone to the aspects where you can modify your barrel of your weapon, the stock, or anything like that yet. So maybe it does change. So I'm just saying this right now. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it's already there. I will put this somewhere else, or when I redo a new review in the future. There's not many visual aspects that change with that. So you don't necessarily need to have a lot of guns, but when it comes to like if you're changing out aspects of your gun that changes the characteristics, then the visual aspect would be kind of cool to have that like a little bit more profound and seen. Again, I'm saying that, but I don't know if it's already there. I haven't checked. So that point's kind of a maybe, because I'm not sure if it does change or not. But I do like the options that he includes for that. So you can actually change, there's like 4 different aspects of your rifle that you can change, and each of those aspects has about 5 or 6 different changes you can choose from. So you can really customize your weapon, a rifle or your sword, to what you would like it to be. Same thing with the ability, your spear is. And then you also have your armor, which are the different subclasses. I like how that is done, where it's very simple things that are crucial to the gameplay, and it works for this kind of game because it's a roguelike. You're supposed to go in, do your mission and stuff like that. You try to make it as far as you can. If you die, you leave. You got ways to maybe keep some of the currency or keep some of the progress, but you lose a lot of it. But if you make it farther, you get more back. And then you just get experience essentially and currencies, and then you use that experience to get levels that unlock other things for you to then purchase with those different currencies that you get. And it's a very simplistic system. Like, it's not overly done like a lot of other games do. You got a lot of stuff there. It's simplistic. It feels like there's enough there to where it's like, oh yeah, you're only a couple levels away from leveling up something or unlocking something new. And that's the way it was. Like every 2 levels, we were unlocking something new. I definitely like that. And then there was even a prestige system in the game too. I haven't reached that yet. I will report on that whenever I get to that and how exactly that works. But from the looks of the prestige system, it looks very similar to how a lot of other kind of prestiges work. It unlocks more game modes and stuff like that and other things for you to do. But that's where I'm pretty pleased with the gameplay on that aspect. The gunplay and the dodging does remind me of Remnant. But then the actual sword combat, it's got a little more in-depth mechanics, because in Remnant, all you do is slash, and then there's a heavy attack and like a dodge attack kind of thing. And that's all it is. You got a couple options, but not much. But in Knights Within, you got different combos. Like you can choose a style of your weapon and how you're going to fight, and that actually determines your 4-hit combo, the direction you swing your sword. You also got blocking, parrying, as well as the option to stagger. Honestly, the fact that they actually have all that in here is awesome. Now, I will say, most of the time when you're in like a really heated fight with a lot of little guys, you're not really trying to parry everything. You're just trying to swing, dodge, or block. And it works, though. Like, it's a good thing the blocking is there. And I do like the fact that you can hit multiple enemies at once. Obviously, this isn't like For Honor, where it's very like strategic. Oh, okay, you gotta block this attack, parry this attack, attack this way or that way kind of thing. Those are fun mechanics, sure, for that game. But for this game, I like the hack and slash feel. And they definitely delivered on that. But they also made it all simplistic enough and very well oiled out with the aspect of, oh, well, you can just keep swinging, hitting enemies, and everything. You can charge your attack to do more damage, and that actually takes out the grunts very easily. Normally, that's a one-hit kill for the grunts. And then for the bigger guys, like if you clear out the grunts first and then you have a big guy coming after you, then you can actually just quickly and very easily, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to either block you, dash, or dodge out of the way, or I'm going to parry your attack, stagger you, and lay in on you. And it works. It actually really works very well with how that game mechanic works. So it's very well thought out, and I'm very pleased with that. And then when it comes to the roguelike element, I was a little bit surprised by the aspect that when you get your beacons, which is what you use during your mission as you go through the stages, beacons are essentially the buffs that your team gets. Now, it was a little bit different to see that, I will say. I played several stages by myself, and then I played with a squad for a couple matches, or sorry, stages. It was a little different. No, I'm not upset about it. I will say that. I did kind of like it. It actually really makes you think as a team, because in this game it works. Because if you compare it to something like, we'll go back to Risk of Rain. In that one, everyone has their own build, essentially, their own loadout. So you literally pick a character you play in that game, and then you earn coin by killing and doing stuff, and then you get modifiers to attach to yourself, and it only modifies you. Now, some are team-related ones, might help out a teammate if they're close by, but it primarily affects you. You're the carrier. In Nights Within, the beacon that you choose affects everybody on the entire team. So I will say it was different. I wasn't too sure about it at first, but now that I think about it and actually have played a little bit more, I actually am happy that it is that, because it makes you think as a team. So that way you can actually all think together, and you can actually talk in the heat of battle. You gotta, like, okay, you're trying to defend yourselves and everything, keep yourselves safe, but then you have to all decide. Technically, anybody can go in there and pull a string and grab the beacon, and technically it might not be a very good one, where they could have a better option. So in which case it could be a way for some tomfoolery, which actually I'm okay with. I'm okay if some games have a little bit of a way for people to play with each other, kind of have a little bit of tomfoolery, shenanigans happen. So I'm okay with that. But no matter what, it's still going to help people. I mean, no matter what, even if you're increasing a stack you already have or something else, it will be helpful. Some might not play well together, but that's also not a bad thing. So that's where you really have to talk to each other as a team. It's like, okay, well, in that case, you have to come up with like your own system of how you're gonna like pick it. Is this gonna be like first one to it and can read them picks? Are you gonna let the host essentially be the one who picks? Like, there could be some game options that are put in to the game settings. Like, maybe if you're the host, you can make it so nobody else can choose and only you can. Or actually work in the system like what we were doing there for a bit, actually work in a system where it rotates on who gets to pick. That way, it can kind of keep things a little bit even. I did like how that went. So that way it's like, okay, well, you have the final say, but everybody can at least present an argument or their stance on why we should get this one compared to this one. And as a team, for a team game, that actually works pretty well. I like that. It was a little bit different from what we've seen in other games, and I liked it a lot, actually. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to play in more. One thing, kind of going back to how you have like the subclass, the weapons and all that kind of stuff, the abilities, I would definitely like to maybe see a couple extra aspects of where you can maybe modify your outfit a little bit more than what's already in the game. It's not like paramount, but that way you can kind of do something fun, make your knight look a little bit more, well, essentially badass. It would be pretty cool. Maybe something down the line would be kind of cool. It's not like paramount, but it would be neat to see something like that. And when it comes to the loadouts, an extra thing that could potentially get thrown in, like maybe once you hit a prestige or working with all the other levels, if there's still some room to work in an extra thing to unlock, are extra cooldowns. Because if he's got a simple system like that, as we said during the stream, you could definitely add in a few more. You could do it where each person or each member of the team has their own cooldown. Now, the shared one is the number one, that's the reinforce, just like how Helldivers work. When team members are down, anybody can call down the reinforce. That's like the static one, and it brings back all your teammates who are currently down. But then you can have 2 more slots, and you can swap those 2 slots out for other types of call-ins. So you could have ones, it's like, oh, well, somebody can call in something for health, somebody can call in something else for ammo, but then you could even do like maybe a defensive or offensive like structure of some kind. You call one in, it's going to be a pod, and it's like an AoE, it attacks enemies as they come in kind of thing. Or it's a area healing kind of thing. Like, we already got those in abilities, yes, but having an extra pod that you can drop anywhere to do such thing would be pretty cool. So that way it would even add in more to the team aspect. It's like, oh, well, I'm bringing in ammo and health, or 2 health options. What are you bringing in? Oh, I'm bringing in one that's supposed to help slow down enemies in the area or something like that. Or it's like a boss fighting one or something like that. And it could have longer cooldowns. And only the person who has those specific ones can call them in, and the cooldown is unique to them. But if it's something like a healing or an ammo one, it's shared with the whole team. So there's actually a team aspect to it. That would be a pretty cool mechanic to see come into the game way down in the future and stuff like that, just extra call-ins. Because I am a sucker for team play games. I love games where you can work as a team. I especially love games where people can freely choose what role they want to fill. But then when you choose that role you want to fill within the team, you stay that role for the duration of your mission. Or like technically you can change loadouts and stuff like that. So when you change a loadout for your weapons and your armor, it also changes out your call-ins. So you can do something like that too. I did see an option for that in the game. I did not test it. I'm not sure how the loadout swapping works exactly in a mission. I did see the option you could do that. I wasn't sure if it was instant or not. If it is, I'd probably say, like, if you have that thing where you could like drastically change your playstyle, maybe have like a cooldown on it, maybe. But I never tested it, so there could already be something like that. I don't know. That would be very interesting to see. Not really paramount, but that is what I believe to be another way to work in like extra unlocks and extra things you could adjust on your character's loadout to change the game style that or the play style you're going with. Now, sound design, very good. Now, again, it's early access, so just keep that in mind. The gunplay, activation of abilities, attacks, all that kind of stuff, very well done. I like how everything's proximity. You can hear certain things at certain distances, hearing things get summoned in, and so on. It was very loud, but I'd probably say that's mainly just on my end. Thankfully, it's very easy to turn everything down and adjust it, which is very, very nice if you want to just be hearing all that happening and such. So I will say the one thing, and we discuss it, when it comes to the voice acting and stuff like that, obviously it's indie game. He's probably the only one that's done voice acting, maybe had a friend or two help, but there's not a lot of voice acting in the game. There are a few things at least, so that does help. It's not completely bare bone, like absolutely nothing. It does have a few things here and there, but as he's actually said in his roadmap, he plans to add in more dialogue and voice lines. So it is in the agenda to do that. When you look at his roadmap, along with many other things, he plans to add in more bosses and other new biomes, all sorts of stuff. He does plan to add more stuff into the game. So I will probably do another review later down the line, but that's for a different time. But with the sound gameplay and the sounds during the gameplay, pretty well done. Like, it's actually pretty good. It's not very bland. Like the guns firing and everything sound very good. They sound good. They sound heavy. You're not just plunking or anything like that. It's a very good, boom sound coming from the gun. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure depending on the ammunition you use actually changes how the gun sounds. Because I think I heard him running around with the shotgun, and it sounded a little bit different than what my gun was. Not like drastically different, but it was barely noticeable. It didn't quite sound the same to everybody else's gun or my gun. So I did like that little detail for the sound. That was pretty cool. The sound was very well done. Now, the controls. I gotta say, for what is in the game for the controls on what you can do, it's very well thought out and very well done. When it comes to the things you can do, mixed with the default button settings and everything, the default keybinds, very well done. I actually am, for a game like this, I'm actually very happy by the fact it's like, well, you have simple movement. Q is your switching of weapons, but you can also use mouse wheel. WASD, as I said. You got space, which is your dashing. Sprint is your shift. And then control is your actual like barrel roll dodge. I feel like it works. It actually worked very well. It was very comfortable hitting, like, okay, I got a sprint right now. Okay, shift. I want to just do a quick dash to get out of the way of an incoming projectile. Okay, space to dash. But then it's like, oh, well, now I got somebody who's doing a really big swing at me, or a really big AoE, or I got to roll past a incoming like shockwave attack or something. So then you use control and you simply just roll through it, dodge through it, and there you go. And I did like the aspect of where you have your dash and your dodges, and you have to use when to use each one. And I really like that aspect. So you have your dodging, which actually would negate an attack coming at you. So if you're having an enemy swing at you or a wave attack or anything like that, you can dodge through it during the animation of your dodge. Dashes they're not meant to actually like completely phase through an attack. They are meant to just get out of the way of an attack. And there are times to use that. Like, I would actually say it's a lot quicker. You move about the same distance. You're quicker when you dash, it felt like, but you are still vulnerable to being hit. So that's where if somebody's doing a swing attack at you, like a wide range attack, probably not the best thing unless you want to back up. But when we were fighting a couple different Fallens, Berserkers, I think is what they were. Yeah, Berserkers. One of the attacks is where they would shoot off in a compass direction. So all four directions, they would shoot off like one way, and then they would slightly rotate randomly. It wouldn't be always the same. Like, they might do that 2 times, it was the exact same way, or slightly alter it. So dash is perfect for those times where you just dash out of the way. You can keep firing very easily at him and keep that damage going. And then as soon as he's about to hit you again, you just dash out of the way. No problem. And then you can keep the DPS going. Whereabouts if you dodge during those times, yes, you would dodge the attacks, but you're only going about the same distance and you are technically still going through the animation of rolling and then getting back up again. So during that time, you can't do much. So that's where, when it comes to that control setup and how the controls were made for that, I very much liked it. That felt very good. I play a lot of games similar to this and also many other kind of just basic shooters with different types of traversal controls and whatnot, like Titanfall 2, other things like that and whatnot. And recently it was Faction Police Squad. Whereabouts this one, it felt natural. Like the controls felt good. About the only one that I would probably change, like on a default, Take T, which is your tag/ping. And if you hold it down, you can use it for like quick comms. Anybody can change it. Thankfully, you can rebind all the controls. I rebound it to my middle mouse button, mainly because on a lot of games that have a ping system, that's normally what the default is. That's like the only keybind that I had to change, and it felt really good. Everything else you don't really need to have quick access to. Everything else is quick access. You got your ability and everything from your spear, which is F, interact is E, reload, and everything is R, Q for switching weapons if you want to use your keyboard, and then C for your armor ability. It's all right there, very confined. You're not reaching halfway across the board to hit M for a map. For controls, very well done. I'm very happy with it. Now, the story and the lore, right now, there's not much. There's really nothing. Couldn't really find anything on why are we fighting this? Is there like a reason? Are we knights inside of a cursed land kind of a thing with a little bit of it's like a technological place, but our technology is advanced in a certain way kind of thing. And it's like, oh, well, there's just areas that we're trying to clear. There are fallen knights that you're trying to go fight and stuff like that. And you're trying to essentially strengthen your keep and whatnot to carry the fight out against like a necromancer. Because all this stuff feels like they're just like spirits that are being brought back from like a necromancer or something like that, maybe. So it could be play off like, oh, well, you're just trying to find this guy. It doesn't have to be major. There's just really nothing there right now. And that's not a bad thing. For a game like this, it doesn't need to have something like that. Very few games like this with a roguelike and stuff like this, especially with Risk of Rain 2, it doesn't really have much. There is a little bit of something there, but it's not like heavy, and it doesn't need to be. Like, there doesn't need to be a story for a game like this. It could be more just like lore and stuff like that. Things you can find maybe here and there, or like an interaction with a certain character at your keep, and just kind of like fill in some lines here and there. It's like, oh yeah, no, you're a fresh knight that just came into the keep and you're fighting, these spirits or whatever they are, kind of like ghostly figures trying to achieve something for the keep. You're trying to cleanse the lands or whatever, because it definitely feels like that. Like, you're going through these areas that have been abandoned or people have evacuated. So it's kind of like, well, in this particular valley, and according to the map, we are in some sort of a valley with a bunch of different areas. So it's like, well, we're in this massive valley and everything. We're on the edge of it and whatnot. The knights are keeping the peace, and we are trying to find out what's happening. So that's what you're trying to achieve. You could work on something easy like that, but it's not really necessary. There's just not too much there. And that's, again, not a bad thing. The replay value, it's a roguelike. So this is a core thing in the game. And normally when you hear roguelike, that is what this is. Your whole thing is replayability. It's getting in, you do some sort of a mission, some sort of an objective of some kind is what you're doing. And then by completing certain goals of that, or certain milestones, or the whole thing, you then return and you gain experience or gain something from that, which then you can use to increase your character's potential of going farther in the future. It's very well balanced and it's very well done. I like that aspect in this game specifically. Some games don't quite do that right when they are a roguelite. It kind of misses the mark a little bit, but this one does very well in that aspect. So the replay value is there and it's high. Unlike a story game where you might be able to get a couple playthroughs out of it just to get a few things here, this one definitely has a lot of replay ability in it. And especially with what he could potentially put in the future. Like, maybe like you do a certain challenge on a difficulty or a certain map or whatever, and there's something there that's a little bit different and unique. There's something you're trying to look for and whatnot. So you're kind of racing against the clock with the enemy mutations getting stronger and so on and so forth. There's a lot of potential there, and I'm very happy with it. Now, just a couple extra things. We've kind of already talked about a few things here and there that I would probably say add. He's already planning on doing most of it anyway, so huzzah to him, honestly. It's fantastic to see that. He already plans to improve upon several things, add in several other kind of things. He was talking about music updates, objective types even, as well as more modifiers, tiles, and map areas, new beacons and mutations, which is awesome to see, quests and legends, which will be really cool to see, balance changes, optimizations. He's also hoping to add in cosmetic items and stuff like that. Awesome. New interactive map finds and side events. So he's going to be adding stuff like that to new boss classes, Steam achievements, which is awesome for those achievement hunters out there. A pause break system, some more dialogue and voice acting. Wink, smiley face. I like that. And ways down the line, not high priorities. He's planning on adding in emotes. Awesome. New gear mods, leaderboards, improved controller support, single player lore integration. So, or simple story in lore. So he does plan to add that, which is awesome. Armor mesh cosmetics, visual changes based on equipped gear. So he literally planned everything we just talked about. This is awesome. That I wasn't sure if he either had it in the game already or not. He totally plans to add this stuff in the future, which is awesome. Like, this dude's already on top of things. He already has a playable game, and all these extra things that he plans to put in is going to be great. He also has new factions that he plans to bring in way down the line, new game modes, way more biomes, and even deeper story and lore additions. So that stuff isn't in the game yet. But the fact that he recognizes that and has hopes to put stuff like that into the game is awesome. I'm very, very looking forward to this. It's nothing structured when it comes to this roadmap, as he clarifies that it's completely fluid and subject to change. So essentially, if you want to be able to keep up on stuff, be in the Discord, which he does have a Discord. It's very small. Heck, honestly, the dude could probably use some help, so who knows? Talk to him. It's a single dude running all this stuff right now, so heck, who knows what might happen. But I will say, as of right now, my final review on the game. Again, keep in mind, as the game is right now, it is early access and a solo dev. The criteria that I am critiquing it to is not the same that I would be critiquing a AAA title company that literally has billions and billions of dollars to dump into a video game and has probably hundreds of experienced employees, most likely, working on the game. Obviously, it's going to mean a whole different thing. So I am going to say that. Keep that in mind. It's not very fair to look at an indie game and say, oh, well, all these things for, what it is and whatnot, it's only going to be a 5 because, like, it could look way better. It's like, yes, it could, but it depends on the team that is working on it. That is where, when it comes to my final say on Nights Within at this time, I will also preface this, I will probably do update videos and even update reviews on this game. If I'm being completely honest, I kind of want to follow this game. Like, I really want to follow this game closely and see what's going to happen. I want to be involved even. So we'll see what happens with it. But as of right now, for what the game is, being developed by a solo person, and it's in early access, and he does have plans and hopes to at least add things into the game. It's not a money grab or anything like that, like we've seen a lot of stuff. I'm honestly going to give this game probably there is still some room for growth, and if that growth comes in, it's going to greatly increase the game in a lot of ways that I'm going to love. So I am going to say most likely it's going to sit at about a 8 for me. It would be a 10 if there was just a bit more cosmetic stuff and a bit more story, but it doesn't need to be a full cinematic. For what the game is trying to be, I'm giving it an 8. There's still some room for growth. Honestly, if he does deliver on a lot of the stuff, timeline doesn't really matter if it takes him a year, 2 years, or even just a couple months. If he ends up delivering on the stuff that he's hoping to deliver, then this game is going to probably be a 10 out of 10 for me, if I'm being completely honest. It's already hitting a lot of great notes for me when I look into games like this. It doesn't have certain things in the game, sure, but the way the game is made, with the absence of those things, it doesn't hinder the game as is. And the fact that he's going to be adding in those things in the future gets me hyped. I will say, I am hyped to see what he's going to do with this game. I am very much looking forward to it. It is a solid 8 out of 10 iron bars for me as of right now. That is probably going to be changing in the future. I would definitely recommend the game. especially if you like third-person hack and slash roguelite action games, especially if you want another fun co-op game to play with buddies. So, and if Helldivers and other kind of games like that is a little too drama-filled or just not exactly what you want to deal with right now and a bit too out of your price range, dude, hop on this game, help encourage this guy, give him some support. Let's see what we can do with this game, because it's got some good potential.